The first session of the three-day G7 summit has begun with a working lunch in the Japanese city of Hiroshima. What's dominating the agenda is the Russia-Ukraine war and China's so-called coercive economic politics. Visuals of the inaugural plenary meeting are on your screens right now. The leaders of G7 nations, Joe Biden of the United States, Rishi Sunak of United Kingdom, Justin Trudeau of Canada, Olaf Scholz of Germany, Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Emmanuel Macron of France, and Fumio Kishida, the Japanese host. The leaders had earlier held bilateral talks on Thursday evening and on Friday morning. Media reports also suggest Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is headed to Hiroshima and will be meeting the G7 leaders. However, before the first session of the summit began, the G7 leaders visited the Hiroshima Peace Memorial and paid their respects to the victims of the atomic bomb tragedy of 1945. The leaders were met by the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida at the Memorial Park, also called the Atomic Bomb Dome. The G7 leaders also planted trees in the Hiroshima Peace Park. Let's take a look at the bilaterals that have taken place so far. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida held talks with his Italian counterpart, Giorgia Meloni, ahead of the start of the G7 Leaders Summit. Kishida also held delegation-level talks with French President Emmanuel Macron, who arrived in Hiroshima on Friday morning. Kishida also spoke with US President Joe Biden ahead of the G7 summit. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida announced the signing of the Hiroshima Accords ahead of the opening day of the summit. This includes a semiconductor supply chain amid an increasingly competitive market. And for more on this, we are now being joined by our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, live from Hiroshima. Siddhant, good to see you. There are 8 countries, including India, which have been invited to the summit. What is the significance of the G7 chair to woo the global south in this forum? And will they have an impact in the final statement?
Well, when it comes to the invitees, 8 countries, and as you pointed out, countries from the global south. Now, we know that these countries have 5 of them from the Indo-Pacific region. That shows how Japan is keen to engage with the countries in the Indo-Pacific. Earlier this year, we saw the Japanese Prime Minister visiting India and laying out his plan on the Indo-Pacific vision. So, essentially, focus is on Indo-Pacific, but largely, as we know that President Zelensky is also expected to participate, there could be a strong possibility of a meeting, a bilateral between the Ukrainian president and the leaders of of global south. So essentially the big focus now remains that how the Japanese as host are able to bridge perhaps a divide between the global south and their position on Russia-Ukraine conflict, and perhaps also provide a platform for any engagement. When it comes to the joint statement, I don't think so that the countries who have been invited will be keen to be part of the joint statement, because this is particularly a G7 joint statement.
Siddhant, this is a 3-day forum. Take us through the events of the first day.
Well, today, of course, the day started with the G7 leaders paying homage to the victims of the atomic bombings, the atomic attack which took place in 1945. And essentially, we know that since then there have been plenary meetings. We do expect more plenary meetings today. The focus remains on Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Chinese aggressive actions, the North Korean missile test. But today's meeting leads way for a larger meeting, that is the G7 outreach meeting, and then of course the key bilaterals which is expected as well.
Our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibal reporting live from Hiroshima, Japan. Thank you, Siddhant. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.